So we'll look at some examples of them. Superbill? Did someone have a question?
No, I didn't know what you said, Superbill.
Oh, Superbill, yeah. I know, I have a Mass accent, so if you need me to repeat something, just let me know. Sometimes, especially in this class, because it starts getting later, I'm up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So sometimes by like in the afternoon, if I'm not getting a little giddy, all of a sudden my terminology starts to, I'm deaf in one ear too, so it's like all of a sudden my terminology, so sometimes I have my own language. Just warning you, but it is kind of comical, it really is, but just letting you know now. All right. So we did talk about the CMS 1500 form. There are really 2 great examples at the end of chapter 1 in the textbook of both the CMS 1500 and the CMS 1450. The CMS 1450 is what they call a UB04. The UB04 is used in an inpatient setting. The 1500 is used in the outpatient or ambulatory setting. So I think that they're on pages, I flagged them here. They're on pages 11, yeah. Page 12 and 14. And one thing that you'll notice, if you look at the bottom of page 12, where they have the procedures and services or supplies that are listed, if you look at it, they've got CPT/HCPT. Can everybody see that?
And what page again?
It's on the bottom of page 12, and if you take a look at the very bottom of that CMS 1500 form, you've got where it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the bottom.
Yep.
If you scroll over a little bit to section D, where it has the procedures, services, and supplies, it's CPT/HCPT. They're one and the same, they're synonymous. So, as I said, I do have, and I'll bring it into one of our classes, I do have a HCPT coding manual, but you've got all of the category 1 HCPT codes there. The national level 2 are on CMS website. Those aren't published. So one thing is with ICD, our code sets are updated when? Anybody? When do they update? They do it every 10 years. They update the whole classification system. But what's the frequency that they publish changes? Once a year? When? Come on, guys, when are they implementing ICD?
October.
October 1st. CPT is updated January 1st. So there's your difference. Another certification exam. Bingo. CPT, January 1st. ICD, October 1st. Okay? All right. So chapter 2. We got through chapter 1 pretty quick, huh? We'll be coding before the night's over. I like to get right into it. Yep. Sprinkle that one. Monkey. Okay. So we're going to take a quick little fly through of our CPT Coding Manual. And again, minus 13. Hopefully I'll have the 14. Does the 14 come with the little tabs? Yes, it does. I can guarantee you all before the end of this class, you're going to have your text manual or your coding manual decorated with flags. One thing that I want you to be aware of is you can't put any type of like notes or sticky notes inside. They won't allow sticky notes, but just try to keep in mind, or, you know, kind of, if you want to take notes, feel free to take notes, but just keep in mind that they're not going to allow you to have any type of loose pages or anything like that in your coding manual. You can still flag your different sections. You can kind of set it up so that it's easier for you to use. I know separating the different sections out can be helpful. So, but just keep that in mind, no loose pages. So in first going into the CPT Coding Manual, we have a list of place of service codes. If you take a look at that CMS 1500 form, everything on there is a code. Everything. Everything is a code. Why would everything be a code? We're protecting the privacy and confidentiality of that patient information. So everything is HIPAA based. Everything is private and confidential, given codes, because to the regular layman looking at that, is it going to make any sense? No. So with the application of codes, you've got the ICD for the diagnoses, you've got the CPT for the procedures and services. That is a way of communicating confidentially. See, I told you. In confidence, what is actually taking place during that particular encounter for that patient. So it's one way of keeping the information private. So of course, here are the place of service codes. You cannot memorize all of this information. Just FYI, know where to find it, and where to find it. There's a lot of information. One thing I gotta warn you about in this particular class is there's a lot of reading. There's a lot of reading. And I think that that is what coding's all about. When you're in ICD, you're constantly looking at the guidelines, right? Reviewing those guidelines. CPT is very similar. So in the very beginning, starting on Roman numeral 10, X, we have the introduction, and we have some instructions for using the CPT code book. Starts on Roman numeral 10. But I have the old code book, though. I have last year, so is it on 10? 12. No, 12? Okay. It's close. It's close. So this gives a little bit of information on the add-on codes, on modifiers. We're going to get into modifiers next week, but a modifier appends a particular code to say something was slightly different about it. The guidelines, you have guidelines for CPT codes in the beginning of each section. One thing that you need to really train your eyes to do with CPT is your eyes should move up, your eyes should move down. You want to look at the code above, you want to look at the code below, because when you have that upcoding that's taken place, or there may be one word in that descriptor that is actually upcoding your procedure. You don't want to code above and beyond, you don't want to code too far below, but you want to match it up the best that you possibly can to state what was actually performed. It takes a little getting used to, and that's what we're gonna be doing in here. In the CPT manual, there's quite a few different codes that are used. Some of these are listed. When we get into the sections, you'll see them scrolling across the bottom of the page. It could be revised code. It could be a code that includes anesthesia. It could be certain guidelines or rules about that particular code. If you look in the regular sections, not in the guidelines, but they're across the very bottom of the page. There's quite a few references to the CPT assistant in the textbook. CPT assistant is used by some healthcare organizations. Actually, quite a few don't subscribe to it because it's very expensive per user. It's about $1,700 per user. Have you used that in industry, Barbara?
Yeah, but they don't always order.
Right. It's too a lot of healthcare organizations, especially now they have what they call computerized assisted coding. Has anybody heard of that, CAC? What do you think? Do you think it's going to replace coders? Why? Absolutely. Computers can't think. They can't think. They don't have the rationale like a human. They don't have that, when I said that we're going to be researching, you study, you kind of dissect what is being performed to apply the specific code. Computers don't have that functionality. They really don't. So computer-assisted coding, which is actually this week's discussion board topic, it's very helpful to a coder, it's useful to a coder, and it's a lot less expensive than the CPT Assistant. The CPT Assistant is a publication from the AMA. And rather than just looking at, you can kind of go in and see a current version or an updated, something that's current, they go back 20 years. So I think that $1,700 is you're paying for all of this archived material. Why do you think that they would go back so many years?
You have to keep a health record for a while.
You do. You have to keep a health record, so if there's any type of legal issue that transpires, you have to have that data, that historical data present. Typically, a healthcare claim, a healthcare organization has about 1 year to continually submit until they receive that money for that particular patient's episode of care. Some take longer. Some actually take longer. So that historical data can be beneficial at that point too, but how long do we have to maintain health records here in New Hampshire? 7 years. 7 years. After the age of majority. We all know that, right? Okay. I have some educational information coming from Warman Services. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of them, but they just did a conference here in New Hampshire for medical records law in the state of New Hampshire. So I'll be passing along that information. It's about a probably 60-page book, all on medical records law specific to the state, which is, it's an excellent tool. So. On page, let's see, it would probably be 16, Roman numeral 16. That's where we start to take a look at some of our illustrated anatomical and procedural reviews. There's some medical terminology reference right in the beginning here, which is pretty good. Just a little review. I did put a little exercise up on Blackboard for a terminology review as well. So those are not graded, they're just for your benefit. You'll see them, I'll pop them up, I create them online, so I'll pop them up throughout the semester, and that's just for your benefit, to be able to kind of take a look at those.
Was that the Quizlet?
Yes, Quizlet,
I
yeah.
wondered if that was graded or not, so I didn't do it.
No, it's not graded, but it's just kind of, I know that some
Practice.
students, when they tend to start getting into the coding courses, they've had a number of semesters since doing medical terminology, some. So just as a little refresher, it's good to kind of get that little, kind of like a little warm-up. So medical dictionaries is listed. Medical dictionaries, any type of references and resources that you can use that are out there. Quite a few of them are already on those coding resources in that tab on Blackboard. They are hugely beneficial in this class, hugely. I have a little Dorland's medical dictionary, because sometimes breaking it down can even be beneficial when you're applying the codes. So keep that in mind. Whatever tools that you would like to use, quite a few of the web-based resources that I've put online, they're free. So whatever you feel comfortable using. This book, as I mentioned, does have a lot of anatomical illustrations. They're all listed in the guidelines or the beginning of this introduction. When we get into radiological coding, when we start to look at that, that's when the bodily planes come into effect. You must have done this in human body, and probably mental terminology as well. So that's where we start to, depending on how the body is viewed for those particular screen captures or the different x-rays that are taken, that comes into play when we're assigning codes to those services. Pathology, the molecular pathology, there were quite a few changes to this since 2012. I'm not sure if in the 2014 there's a huge amount of information. I know the change went into effect in 2013, so it may be in my book only. Evaluation and management. This is probably one of the most difficult aspects to grasp in CPT coding, E&M coding. When we get to this particular section, I'm going to give you a lot of tools to use for this. I think that there's 13 different appendices in this book. Appendix C has examples of patient encounters, and that can be used to kind of narrow down some of the E&M codes that would be applied. E&M is just really tricky. Some of it's straightforward, but some of it can be tricky. So I think we cover those in 2 more weeks, either that or towards the end of the semester. E&M, Evaluation and Management, is actually our first section of the CPT manual. We have 6 sections in the CPT manual. And if you take a look, it's kind of on the sides, they're color-coded. So you have the E&M, that first red section. Next section would be anesthesia, which is blue. And we have the surgery section. The surgery section is broken up by bodily system. So that is the largest section in the CPT manual. What I've done is throughout the course of the summer semester, I've broken it down so we're not covering everything all in 1 week. We're kind of looking at each specific bodily system separately, so it's not information overload. So again, that breaks it down by bodily system. Our next section would be the radiology section. And then we have pathology and laboratory. Then we have medicine. After the medicine section, right around or about page 561, we have our category 2 codes. Our category 2 codes are the codes that end in the F. So those are supplemental. Typically, when I had mentioned about the category 2 codes, the HIC picks for the quality measures and the incentives, that's essentially what these codes would be used for, is just for tracking, to make sure that we're meeting quality measures for healthcare organizations. They're totally optional to the healthcare facility. They're not required. Category 3 codes essentially start on or about page 579. And those again are our technology codes. Remember that with the T at the end. Those are our emerging technologies. One thing that you're going to find in assigning these codes is sometimes perhaps there's a